Good morning. I'm Janek Kozlowski. I am the Director of Operating Capital Projects at Metro-North Railroad. I oversee the construction of capital projects with in-house forces and our support for that. In today's talk, we're going to talk a little bit differently, not just about the projects, but on how projects are built and the things that you need to know if you're going to be working with the railroad on building a project successfully. So we're going to cover 4 topics today. We're going to cover the New Haven line to give you an idea of where these projects are being built. The 4 overarching rules that we have to deal with when working with a railroad and constructing projects, what you need to do and know for preparation for construction and the actual construction itself. So looking at the New Haven line, first of all, this is the Metro-North territory that you see in front of you. The lines that are in red are the New Haven line over here on the right, and that's what we'll be focusing on today. To let you know, the CDOT has Connecticut Department of Transportation has passenger rail lines throughout the state. We'll be focusing on the ones in the bottom left of your screen right over here. This is the part that Metro-North runs for the Connecticut Department of Transportation. So the New Haven line. First, we are a contract carrier for the Connecticut Department of Transportation. We are also a full-blown railroad. In New York State, we own our railroad infrastructure. We are the railroad of record going north out of New York City. However, the state of Connecticut has contracted for us to go ahead and continue our services into the state of Connecticut, all the way up to New Haven and up 3 separate branches. A little bit overview of the New Haven line itself. New Haven line is 62 miles long, going from Grand Central Terminal all the way up to, from Bronx, going up to New Haven, Connecticut. 48 miles of that is in Connecticut. The majority of that line is 4 tracks wide. There's a small section that is 3 tracks wide only. It is electrified along its entire route with overhead catenary at 12,500 volts. It has a lot of trains on it. It is the busiest passenger line in North America. As you can see right here, this is one-way trips. So we have, during the peak period hours, we have up to 20 trains in each direction going just our trains, Metro-North trains, between Stamford and New York City. We also have additional trains going from New York City up to Harrison, which is on the New York side of the border. They still impact service all the way up to Stamford. So that's, if you take 20 trains each direction, that's 40 trains. You throw in Amtrak service and anything else going on, and you have a train every single minute on that track, any part of that line. Very, very busy. When you go east of Stamford, we get down to fewer trains, but we still have to 6 trains in each direction per hour during the peak periods. That's rush hour. And on top of that, you have the Northeast Corridor, which is Amtrak's premier corridor, featuring the Acela Express. We have freight service on these lines. CSX is a primary freight train provider, and the Providence and Worcester Railroad has trackage rights over these lines. And this line also has 3 separate branches. The 3 branches are the New Canaan branch, which is 8 miles long. It has this one right up here. It has no passing sidings, and it has some pretty good sized service on there during peak period, several trains per hour. The Danbury branch is 24 miles long, has 4 passing sidings. It is not electrified, has diesel train service, and those trains go down the entire branch, and some continue on onto the main line all the way out to Stamford, Connecticut. Waterbury branch is 27 miles long. Similar to the Danbury branch, not quite as many trains, but it also has trains that continue all the way down into Bridgeport on the main line. The New Canaan branch hosts no freight service, but the Danbury and Waterbury branches do have freight trains on those 2 branches. This line, which is the busiest in North America for passenger traffic, has a lot of construction projects that are ongoing or about to kick off over the next couple of years. And here I'm just highlighting a couple of the really biggest projects over here. But the bottom line, if you look in here in the bottom of your screen, you'll see that there's almost 100 separate different projects that are going to be taking place along this line. And they're not small projects, they're large projects, such as replace 3 movable bridges. That's where you across all of our tracks across the entire main line. These are massive projects. And the fact is that when you have a project in one certain location, let's say you're replacing a bridge right here, the walk bridge, as they are in South Norwalk down here, the upstream and downstream effects of that construction are felt all the way up the length of Danbury branch, and to the east and to the west, a good 10 to 15 miles. So a lot of impacts from these construction projects. On top of that, we here at Metro-North Railroad are embarking on another project, which is completely New York State. However, it is going to have tremendous impact on what happens on the rest of the New Haven line all the way up into New Haven. That's called Penn Station access. Our trains currently all access Grand Central Terminal in New York City. However, with this project, we're going to go ahead and start running our trains down Amtrak's Hellgate line all the way into Penn Station. Allowing passengers a 1-seat ride to Penn Station, where they can have a easy transfer to NJ Transit and continue on to employment centers in New Jersey, or vice versa, take New Jersey Penn Station and continue on into up Westchester County and Fairfield County to do jobs over there if you live in New Jersey. And so these trains from Penn Station Access, we've been dealing with CDOT on this thing. They want these trains to extend all the way up into New Haven. So even though the project, the construction will be complete in New York State, the implications of and service impacts will be felt all the way up into New Haven. So how do we build all of this thing without impacting the train service? That's the big question on the line. So busy, where you can see during rush hour, one train every minute go by. Well, there are four things that you have to remember. The first is safety, safety, safety. Second one is that trains can't pass each other at will. Third is all about braking. Our trains take a very long time to stop. And finally, the passenger and or the shipper want their train on time. Anything else goes right back to these 4 points. Now we're going to cover these in better detail. Safety presents accidents. We don't want to have an accident. Railroad accidents tend to be very large. They tend to result in a lot of property damage and sometimes injuries. We want to prevent injuries, want to prevent property damage, and we want to stay out of the news. And of course, minimize the costs. Number two, other modes can pass each other at will, but trains cannot, as you can see from here. So that imposes tremendous operating issues when you try to build something along the railroad. We'll get into further depth in a second. Next thing is about stopping. Whereas your car can stop from 55 miles an hour in about 200 feet, a tractor trailer would take about 300 feet to stop. That's still pretty fast. A light rail vehicle, 600 feet. A freight train or fast-moving passenger train will take 1 mile to stop. And that has tremendous implications on how we behave around construction sites. And finally, the passenger shippers, they're all concerned about getting there on time, getting their products on time, getting the job on time, and they don't want your construction project to be interfering with their ability to do so. So what's this got to do with construction? As we're trying to zip up and down the line, getting people and their freight to their destinations on time, if you're anywhere in and around our tracks and you impinge upon that train space, it may end up in a very ugly situation. What you have to remember is that most people think, okay, I see the two rails, that I got to stay away from being in between those two rails. Trains are wider than they look, and they rock when they go back up and down the tracks. And so they take up a lot more space than what really looks like when you look down that track. And so anything that was within and near the track that could potentially extend out even just for a smidgen out over what we call the clearance envelope, the area that the train actually occupies over and above the track, can result in a fouling of the track. Anything that fouls the track can turn out looking like this, a very ugly situation. What we, the railroads, are going to do is we're going to ask that you go through certain steps to get your project done safely and properly. And include permitting from us first, make sure that we know exactly what it is that you want to do so that we can work with you to make sure that it'll truly meet your goals and prevent us from having issues and difficulties down the line. Insurance, we're going to cover that in a second. Safety measures, additional infrastructure. Construction time is going to be very critical. You have to understand that there are certain times we won't let you build around our tracks, and we'll cover that in more detail. And finally, we're going to provide you with support to get the job done too. So first of all, about permits and insurance. Permitting, we're going to sit down with you and issue you a permit to do the work on or about our tracks, but that'll make sure that we know exactly what it is that you want to do, and you know exactly what the stipulations are that we have about you doing those things so that everything's done safely. Number two, insurance. You have to understand that the insurance companies understand that working on and around a railroad is different than working around anything else, be it highways or waterways, airports, anything else, because the trains cannot go around each other. They're confined to that track. That track takes them where they go. So because of that, the every insurance policy out there will not insure you if you're going to do anything within 50 feet of a railroad. So you have to get a very special insurance policy that will allow for that. They're available, they're out there, people get all the time, but just be aware of that. Additional infrastructure. With what you're going to be building for the future, great and wonderful, but if it impacts negatively the passengers in their current commute or the freight service in its current manner, then we're going to ask you to build some additional things to help offset the negative impact of your construction. In this particular case, a new station was built in Devon, Connecticut, over here to offset the fact that we were taking another station out of service just a little bit down the road. So passengers at least had a place to board. Next thing is, remember we said the trains can't pass each other at will. Well, if we have a single track and our branches are all single track, and you want to build something along the track, and you're going to be what we call fouling the track. You're going to be getting into that clearance envelope of a train. We're going to ask, well, can you give us a second track so we can get around your construction? We'll be asking for something that you had not planned to do, but we're going to ask you to do that nonetheless so we can get around your construction and maintain service without getting in anybody's way. And if we have multiple tracks, like I said, the New Haven line, the main line itself is 4 tracks. If you look at this top diagram up here, these top 2 tracks, as far as we're concerned, those are 2 single track main lines. Because the train on this top track has no way to get down this bottom track down here. So we're going to ask you to do this, if you can build some crossovers for us so we can switch from one track to the other to get around your construction and have our trains to be able to get around each other should delays exist because of your construction. Construction windows. This is the part that really trips up a lot of contractors, a lot of folks doing work around a railroad. The normal construction window that developers or contractors have is right here. From about 7 o'clock in the morning till about 5 or 6 o'clock at night. This is when they like to do all their work. Well, I'm sorry, but during the red parts right here, no, this is rush hour. We don't allow any construction on or around any tracks, especially their passenger trains running on those tracks. That's when the people want to move. That's when we won't allow any construction to happen. We'll allow some limited construction between the rush hour periods in the morning, between 10 and 3 p.m. in the morning. So a little bit over there. And a little bit in the evening after rush hour starts, or excuse me, right after rush hour ends. But over here, things begin to open up between 9 and 11, and in the green part right over here, which includes all of Sunday and a portion of Saturday, you can go ahead and build what you want to build. Unfortunately, you realize you're building between 11 p.m. at night and 5 o'clock in the morning. That's your primary construction window, plus all of Sunday and a portion of Saturday. Why only portion of Saturday? You'd be surprised how many people want to get into the city during the day, and we carry a lot of people that way. When you take a track, understand that we have a lot of overhead wires. And these wires don't necessarily line up exactly with the tracks that are out there beneath them. They line up over the tracks, but then they go every which way. And electricity has a tendency to flow in different directions. So on this diagram here, you might be, for example, working in this little spot where the green star is over here, and you want us to de-energize the overhead wires in that spot. However, in order to do so, we'll have to de-energize all of these other tracks in here in order to de-energize that one spot over here. To de-energize those, we're going to be impacting a lot more train service than it would have if we were able to de-energize right there. So if you only want us to de-energize right here, we may have to ask you to build another project, a small project precursor, to allow us to de-energize this small section over here for you ahead of your project. And finally, how are we going to help you out? So first, safeguarding you. We're going to have what is called a conductor flag. That person is going to go out there and going to protect you from our train operations or protect our train operations from you. That person will be your point of contact on the scene for anything that's going on over there and ensure that everything is done safely. Along with that, we'll have a lot of people from our other departments, the people that I oversee. They'll be helping you out with whatever you need done. Do you need extra track? Do you need something moved over? The track will be there to help. Do you need to set up any new type of signal system so we can run our trains more efficiently, despite the fact that you're taking part of our infrastructure out of commission? Well, that's where these people come in. These are traction power people who'll make sure nobody gets electrified. And of course, our structures people, you're building anything, they're there to help support. We also have behind the scenes people. We're going to have a project manager assigned to help you out with your project and be the interface on the technical aspects of your project. You're going to have review engineers going to be reviewing your drawings to make sure that whatever you're planning will not negatively impact our train operations, and ultimately our train operations not negatively impact the ultimate use of your project. We're going to have the traction power control desk. These are the people that will make sure that you don't get electrocuted, and the people that will make sure down here in our train control center that you don't get run over by a train. We're not trying to be sticklers on any of this stuff. Just please realize that we fall under the federal regulations for railroads, and if we violate any of the rules that the federal government has instituted, we pay out of our own pocket. This is the penalty right here, $96,000 per person for any infraction of safety rules. And if those safety rules result in any death or serious illness or whatever, that can be brought up to $250,000 per person down here per day of violation. So it gets very expensive, and we're very, very concerned about that. So the bottom line is, we are going to work with you. Want to make sure your project is very successful. However, we'll make sure that your project will make the 6 o'clock news. Want to make sure that you don't get blamed by the media or the politicians for anything going wrong. We're going to make sure that you don't suffer any railroad-induced delays. And we'll make sure that you don't suffer any rail-induced cost overruns. We're here to work with you, but please work with us. Thank you.